All right, so just like to welcome everyone to today's chat. Today I'm joined by Steve. He's going to give us a lowdown on what's going on with the latest in the US election. So obviously there's a fair bit going on, and so we want to spend a little bit of time dissecting the most important parts. So thanks for joining us, Steve.
Pleased to be here, and thanks for having me.
Okay, so I guess first up, can you just give us an overview of how everything looks at the moment? So we've got Joe Biden, president-elect or not president-elect. We've got voting in the Senate, and we've got voting in the House coming to an end. What does that look like at the moment, and what will that mean for America and, who's got what powers going forward?
Well, there are people in the United States who believe that Trump has a strong enough case to win and remain president. Now, there were irregularities. Basically, it goes like this, that you have 50 states, each state decides its own voting rules. That's registration, early voting, voting day, and counting. Now, it's the state legislature that decides those and can change them. On voting day, there were some minor adjustments made. Not by the legislature, but by perhaps the governor or a committee or a board.
So the legislator is...
The legislation is like state government in Australia.
Yeah, so the politicians.
Yes, so they didn't make the changes, others did, but the changes were minor. And the big thing that they're promoting there is that it affected so few votes that number cannot make a difference. It's, if it affects 1,000 votes and someone's 20,000 in front, well, what's it do? Does he have he has a case for irregularities, but fraud, well, I can't see how he's going to make a case for fraud.
Nonetheless, he has got actions in a number of state Supreme Courts.
Yes.
So I guess the prudent thing at this point is to wait and see how that unfolds.
Yes.
Assuming things stand as they are, what does that mean? And what does that look like? We've got Biden as president.
Yes.
And I understand the Republicans have won a lot of seats in the Congress.
Well, it's in the Senate, it's 50 to 48 with 2 reruns coming up in Georgia. And when I look at the figures, they are so close that you can have a dozen crystal balls and you won't be able to work out who's going to win in either of those 2 reruns.
Now the Senate's interesting because at the moment the Republicans control it. Now, if it goes to 50 all, so it's 50-48 with 2 more seats to be decided.
Yes.
If they fall to the Democrats and it's 50 each, what does that effectively mean?
That means the Democrats have got the Senate.
Because they got the Speaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Vice President. The Vice President is President of the Senate.
Right.
Speaker is in the lower house.
Lower house, right.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, if it's 50 all, the Democrats will control the Senate.
They've got it.
And the presidency.
Yes.
And what about the Congress?
Well, they
control that at the moment?
The lower house,
yeah.
They have a majority and they will continue to have a majority. A smaller majority than they had before, but still, you only need one vote more than the other mob.
Yep.
So they'll have that. But with the Senate, if they win those 2 in Georgia, it will be the same as having a 5-seat majority.
So if assuming Biden becomes president, assuming that he controls the Senate and he controls the House, do you think that he's going to implement basically the agenda that he ran his platform on? Or do you think that he's going to have to backpedal from a lot of that stuff? Well,
what agenda did he run on? If you take fracking, he had so many different positions on fracking. Now, basically, you can split into 2. The position he had during the primaries and the position he had once he was the nominee. And in neither case was he clear on what his position is. So as for implementing the agenda, then there are other problems. See, there are Democrats in the Senate who are very skeptical, if not anti, some of these Green New Deal ideas.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the Democratic Party itself is divided into two. And initially, when there has been a backlash to their vote in the lower house, originally it looked like there weren't going to be any chance in the Senate, and there was a lot of Democrat backlash about this, this extreme left position that was being taken by the party. And there's been a lot of Congress people that have lost their seat, and they've basically been sort of blaming, Cortez and these other, extreme, because basically at the end of the day, people want jobs and blah, blah, blah. And they're actually making a call to sort of for the Democrats to come back to the middle. And we're seeing that with our own ALP. It was once the workers of the party, but now, their primary vote has gone, to the low 30s over the last sort of 10, 20 years. And they seem to be, more aligned to the Greens than they are, their bread and butter. So it's an interesting dynamic. And this is where if Biden does get in and he does control the lower house and the Senate, it's going to be fascinating to watch to see what actually does come out, because he has a mixed agenda and because the Democrats have a mixed agenda.
And I think there's more to it than just jobs. With abortion, from what I understand, there are states, for example, Alabama, that have a number of different laws, and it is impossible to have an abortion and comply with every law. If you comply with the first three, you're going to go against the other. Yet in New York, from what I understand, it is legal to have an abortion after birth has started. Now, some people call this infanticide. Now, I believe that you can be an atheist and be against abortion after birth has started. So that's got nothing to do with jobs.
Mm.
But I believe there will be Democrats in both the Senate and the House who will not like this New York idea, we'll see. Also, there's funding. What the position that Joe, it wasn't his position, it was somebody else's that he sort of took on. Don't even know if he knew what he was taking on, but the wording at one stage was government-funded abortions into the 9th month and government-funded abortions up to the moment of birth. So you see, you've got early, late, but you've got government funding and non-government funding.
Mm. So I guess the assuming, and I personally don't think that Trump's out of this. Giuliani's no clown. He's been around a while. He took down the mafia. He's up to a lot of hard work, and he's no dummy. And I honestly don't think, even though Trump's portrayed as a lot of things, he's no clown either. So I don't think they're doing this because, they don't think that they've got something potentially at the end of it. But assuming that he is not the president, what do you think is going to be next for Donald Trump? Because to me, look, as an outsider looking in, it seems like he's reinvigorated the Republican Party. And to a large extent, they've become the Republican Party of the everyday American.
Doesn't a political party need to have an ideology? Does Trump have an ideology?
Well, he does. America First. So he's...
Sorry, I apologise for this, but
no.
America First has two words. What's behind this America First? Let's hit China, stop them pinching our intellectual things and stop people coming across the border. I feel that is short of an ideology.
But it's whether you think it's short or not, you've got to admit it's had a lot of resonance with the American voters.
Yes.
Right. So ultimately at the end of the day, besides Biden allegedly the votes that Trump's got more votes than Obama, right? See, so people can't keep denigrating the people of the United States, because it's a big swathe of people, and that they're doing what they do for rational reasons. People behave and they react in what they consider their best interests. So the voters of America are very firmly saying that we believe what this guy stands for, and he's making a big difference to us. The other thing about Trump, which is obvious, is the narratives that is getting run by the media. Things like, he's racist, the minorities don't like him, blah, blah, blah. That is also false. So Trump's actually ended up with about 18% of the male black vote, so that's 1 in 5. And when he comes to other minorities, he's up around the 30-40% vote for men. So he has made a lot of progress in these areas. So I guess the question is, regardless of whether you think it's an ideology that's worthy or not, people are buying into it. And it's not just the redneck hillbillies. He's getting cut across a big sort of spread of the population. But it gets back to, if he's not president, do you think he's just going to pack up and go home, or what do you think's next for Trump?
Well, if I may, first of all, say a few words about his racism. Now, racism depends on how you want to define it. You can have 100 people come up with a definition and everyone's a racist. Come up with a different definition, same 100 people, nobody's a racist. Now, Trump has private clubs in Florida. And at one stage, his were the only clubs that allowed black people in the front door and also to become members. The only Trump's clubs. And yet we are told that he's racist. Well, I scratch my head and say, well, what's your criteria? As for what's he going to do, well, he might leave the country, because there are so many different things that different people feel that they can nail him for. Now, just because they feel they can nail him for it doesn't mean they can. But it doesn't mean they can't.
And so now that he's not president, the protection that he's afforded now will be gone. Is that what you're saying?
A good lot of it, a good deal of it, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So putting the Don to aside, what about Joe Biden, the new president? He's not exactly a clean skin if a lot of this Hunter Biden stuff starts getting looked into. Where could potentially that go?
Okay. In the United States, George Washington is, well, as high up there as you can get. Yet, few people realise that during his day, there was talk of impeaching him. I don't know what the basis was or why, but obviously he wasn't, well, if I can...
He wasn't a saint.
Yes, okay. Right.
Is there any politician that's a saint?
Well, see, in the Catholic tradition, a saint is someone who has died and gone to heaven. They are in, and it has been determined that they are in heaven. So you can't be a saint and be on earth.
That sounds like a technical point.
I don't know about that. How can you be a saint on earth? You have to first be dead.
Well, it's just a figure of speech.
Okay.
So it gets back to...
So he wasn't. Now, Abraham Lincoln, he had a number of children. One of his sons died because he wasn't well set up. But he had a son who, in about 1859 or thereabouts, applied for one of the Ivy League universities. I think it was Harvard. And he was accepted for an entrance exam. He failed 16 of 17 subjects. So they sent him for a refresher course and then accepted him. Now, the first thing that gets me is, how could somebody who managed to fail 16 out of 17 have been accepted for an entrance exam in the first place? Yet they ended up accepting him. And now Clinton, the way he looked after his half-brother, got him out of jail, had the whole criminal history wiped, so that when he got picked up the next time, he was a first-time offender and therefore didn't get charged and didn't go in the book. Now, George Bush, he looked after people. Oh, Clinton. He was, what was it, 140 pardons on the last day in office, including public enemy number one, who had fled the country because the FBI wanted to nab him. And then there was another time when Hillary came in with a list of about, what was it, 15, 18 names or something of people who were in jail for kidnapping, murder, extortion, etc. Just said, want a few, what do you call them?
Pardons.
Pardons. Oh yeah, no worries. Here you go.
So do you think Trump is going to provide some entertainment on that sort of front before he heads out the door?
If he does, it won't be something new. It will be presented as something new.
Yeah, but it's standard.
Yeah. Now, hang on, where were we going to with this before I went on that? Joe Biden, is he a clean skin, etc. Well, Joe Biden looked after his son, but so did Abraham Lincoln. There's Bill Clinton looked after his brother. The Bushes looked after their families, etc.
Yeah.
So, in that regard, Biden isn't sort of
different.
Yeah. Well, for want of a better word. Yes.
Okay, then. Well, mate, Steve, thanks very much for having a chat with us today. Really appreciate your time and your thoughts on what's going on. And we'll catch up a little later on once we know a bit more.
You want to leave it at that, do you? Because I've got time.
We got to go to lunch, mate.
Oh, okay then.
Thanks, Steve.
Right on.